Hi all. This is an introduction class about Module 2. Module 2 completely deals with welding operations. First, classification of welding, fusion and solid state welding process. So first of all, understand the basic concept of welding, classification of joining process. Joining processes are basically classified into autogeneous joining, homogeneous joining and heterogeneous joining process. Then types of welding. Welding is classified into three types: solid state welding, liquid state welding, solid liquid state bonding process. Then welding process. What is the concept of welding process? What are the main components in a welding process? Then classification of welding process. There is a broad classification of welding process: gas welding, arc welding, resistance welding, solid state welding, radiant energy welding, etc. Then next topic is gas welding process. In gas welding process, oxy-acetylene welding process, its chemistry, types of flames and its applications. Oxy-acetylene welding process, or it is known as oxy fuel gas welding process, everything is same. Then the combustion procedure in oxy-acetylene welding process, types of flames and its application of flames. Then equipments in oxy fuel gas welding process, filler material in gas welding process, welding technique of oxy-acetylene welding process, etc. The next one is arc welding process. Arc welding process, application, process parameter, some numerical problem related to arc welding process, consumable and non-consumable arc welding process. Then different types of arc welding process like shielded metal arc welding process, gas tungsten arc welding process, gas metal arc welding process, submerged arc welding process, atomic hydrogen arc welding process, plasma arc welding process. Then slag welding process is also an arc welding process. Okay. So we have arc welding process, arc initiation techniques, arc welding electrode, consumable and non-consumable electrodes. Then shielded metal arc welding process, that's a basic arc welding process. Submerged arc welding process. Flux core arc welding process, it is not seen in syllabus, so we can avoid it. Gas metal arc welding process, gas tungsten arc welding process, then electroslag welding process, plasma arc welding process. So all these are arc welding process, classification of arc welding process. Okay. Next category is thermit welding process, friction welding, ultrasonic welding, electron beam welding, laser beam welding process. So thermit welding process, we have friction welding process, electron beam welding process, laser beam welding process, the next one is resistance welding. Resistance welding, application, process parameter, numerical problems. See, in resistance welding and arc welding, we have some numerical problems will be there. Okay. So resistance welding, there are several classification of resistance welding: spot welding, seam welding, projection welding, flash welding, upset welding, etc. Okay. So after resistance welding, we have bracing, soldering, and adhesive bonding. This is another joining process. So soldering, what is the concept of soldering? What are different techniques in soldering? Then bracing, what are the concept in bracing, different techniques in bracing, and what you mean by adhesive bonding. Okay, so that you have to study. Adhesive bonding, types of adhesive, etc. Then defects in welding. So what are the welding defects? Classification of welding defects. So all these are welding defects. Then weldability of ferrous and non-ferrous material, residual stress and distortion. So weldability, what is the concept of weldability? Then we are moving to weld zone. You have to study the weld zone. Then heat affected zone, HAZ. Then heat treatment of welded joints. What is the purpose of heat treating welded joint? You have to have an idea about heat treating welded joints. Then residual stress and distortion, residual stress in welding. Okay, so these are the topics in second module. So second module, majority of topics are welding, and we have bracing, soldering, and adhesive bonding also there. So next video onward, we can start the second module. Okay, thank you.